Hey guys, how's it going? We're back with another video, and today we want to discuss the question, how much rake is too much for live cash? And is more rake really better? Yeah, we had the discussion a lot in our private Discord group, how much rake is beatable in live cash. Yeah, what do you think, Michael? How much rake is too much?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, I'm not super versed in like knowing all the rake structures, but I will say that like pretty much any game where there's like a pretty decent population of players playing that isn't maybe like high stakes, I think it's going to be beatable. You know, unless you're playing some private game where it's really like an uncapped rake. I really can't see too many rooms that are unprofitable because the player pool is just so weak. You know, so even in a game where let's say it's like 10% up to like $10 or $20, it's not too crazy. I mean, that's really high, obviously, but it's like those games should still be beatable. You know, at least up to like 2.5. Obviously, if you're playing in like a 5-10 or 10-20 game and the rake's massive, and then you have maybe like one weak player at the table or something with a bunch of regs, then that's going to be tough. But I wouldn't really worry too much about rake if it's your area, if the game has enough players, you know, and unless it's like really uncapped, I think it's going to be totally fine.
Yeah, good point. I think you should definitely try to stay away from most uncapped games, uncapped rake games, because those games are really hard to beat when it's like 8, 9% uncapped.
Yeah, it's
It's hard
crazy.
when it's like 3, 4% uncapped. I think in a lot of those games you can still be really profitable, because it also depends on a lot of other factors, right? So other players playing quite deep, or buying, do ma- or do most players just buy in for 30, 40, 50 big blinds?
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
when they buy in quite shallow and the rake is quite high, then the game is not so easy to beat. And of course, when most players buy in really deep, like 200, 3, 4, 500 big blinds, and you have a lot of bad players that you can stack from time to time when you have a strong hand, of course you can beat those games for a good amount with a really nice win rate. Also think always about all the other costs, right? Is food included? Are drinks included? If yes, you can pay a little bit more rake, but of course only a little bit. But it's the same thing here in Europe, I would say. In most rooms, it's like 5%, $10, $20. In some places, $30. But I would say all those games are still beatable, and in most official places for sure. Like you mentioned, definitely open your eyes in private games. How much rake do they charge? Ask them how much they usually charge, and if the rake is capped or not. And I think, yeah, the most important thing is really the player pool, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's the main thing. As I was saying earlier, it's like if you're playing, if you notice it, it's like a pretty big pool of players, and you know, basically anywhere. Not that I've traveled everywhere in the world to play, but I've played in a decent amount of places, and you'll find it's usually pretty just similar pools of players in these lower stake games. So I really just wouldn't really worry about it. If it's a reputable room, you know, with a number of tables, you're going to be fine basically always. But you should always just ask. I mean, if you feel like the rake looks ridiculous, maybe ask, and then you know, again, if you think it's something like uncapped or whatever. But I think in general, I just really wouldn't worry too much about it. Yeah, so the main message here, guys, is just try to stay away from the big uncapped games. And if it's not uncapped, then you're basically going to be good to go. And obviously, the main thing is to work on your game, not worry about rake, and then crush the tables. So we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you guys.
Peace.